No, it's a great way to end. We've kind of always in a mindset of, hey, finishing up spring football, want to do a lot of different things, challenge some of our specialists and kickers and punters and things like that, but also give young guys opportunities. Very rarely do you get some of these live situations, whether live punts or live kickoffs and kickoff returns. You don't do them much. You don't want the first time to be, come August and September. So give some guys some opportunities, challenge the specialists in a lot of ways, and challenge the return guys in a lot of ways. And so, there's some sloppy play out there, I think, when you get to the special team, just because some guys are not doing it. We don't need to see Owen Arnett. We don't need to see guys that have run down on kickoff and kickoff return for the last 3 years. But no, it's a great way to kind of close things up, and I think we finished well today.
Kind of sticking with that, you talked earlier in the spring about maybe trying to get some snaps off the veterans when you can, but maybe with the health and everything, that didn't quite happen. How did you feel like you were able to balance maybe trying to get some of those young guys reps, but also enough of the vets?
We were able to do that a little bit more defensively, just because, depth-wise in particular up front on the defensive line, but it became really hard to do that offensively, in particular the O-line as well as even the wide receivers. So those guys got a lot of work, so this next few weeks will be big for them to, kind of get a little bit of time down to rest, relax, and obviously head into the summer with some conditioning. But, it's kind of the nature of the beast. It kind of gives you a great depiction of what's going to happen during the season. If you've got 8 guys that you can play up front on the offensive line, then just like this, you're going to have more opportunities to maybe spell some guys, and if you don't, then you're going to have to be a tight-knit unit that plays every down. And we'll have to be a little bit smarter, I think, with that crew in particular as we come to fall camp. But this was a challenge, not just for 15 practices, but for 34 days.
I saw Joe Brunner get a little work at left tackle. What kind of intrigues you about the possibility of trying him out there?
Well, the position flexibility is huge, and I think whether that's right now for him or even for the next level. And he has the ability to be able to do a lot of different things for us. And to me, most importantly, like the faces and what you want your culture to look like and be like is Joe Brunner. And that's a great, kind of indication to a lot of the guys around that, well, hold on now, you've been the starting guard for how many years, and that's your position, and all of a sudden you bump out, don't say a word, don't complain, actually play really well. And so it's a great example for what leadership looks like and do whatever you have to do for the team.
And with there've been a lot of injuries with the offensive line this spring. Does that make it hard to kind of evaluate where you are as you try to figure out big picture with?
No, what it did was it made those guys have to play a lot more snaps. Like we said, we'd like to have had Riley Mallman out of there a little bit and Jake Renfro out of there a little bit, and but we weren't able to do that. And just because the nature of what we had to do offensively, what we had to do, for the quarterbacks in a lot of ways, and how thin we became there. So those guys had to step up. They did a great job of that. We'll be smart as we move forward, but we know there's some areas where some young guys got to step up, and we got to get some guys healthy.
You talked about one of the goals of spring is coming together as a team. Just how do you try to measure that, and how do you think you guys are doing in that regard?
It's not easily measured. Adversity shows you a lot of different things, but you kind of listen and wait to hear how guys speak and what they say and how they talk, and are the things that we're continuing to preach day in and day out, are they, do we hear them coming out of their mouth, not when they're programmed to say them, but when they have opportunities to speak and talk. And so that gives you some indication, and then once some adversity hits, as you see in the spring, it goes back and forth. To be honest, the offense came out today and really were sharp. In some ways probably had something maybe to prove in their mind from maybe the last few practices, and I think that's where the challenge starts to come in, and you see that when it bounces back and forth, that guys understand that what it takes to be successful and understand what it's going to take to climb this mountain.
For some of the first-year players, the early enrollees, I know you mentioned during the early sign period about them getting them ready to play maybe a little bit earlier. I know Eugene stepped up. You've seen Cooper Catalano work too, but just how did you see those first-year freshmen?
No, they did a good job. They got a lot of reps. Those guys in particular, both the corners on both sides, got a lot of reps, and that was really good for them. That gave us an opportunity to get Rico out of there and to get Nye out of there, because there's guys that played a lot of football for us. Those offensive linemen got a lot of reps against some older guys too, and so they got a chance to measure themselves and recognize what grown men look like and where they need to go. And so I think it gives them an idea of what summer has to look like if they're going to contribute and help for us. But I don't know that there's many of them that came in that probably thought they were going to get as much opportunities as they did. But I think as this all wraps up, they're grateful and they understand, if they want to give us, if they want to play this year, if they want to give us, an opportunity to, put them on the field, then they realize where they are and where they need to be come August.
We saw Coach Grimes in the booth on Saturday for the scrimmage or open practice, whatever you want to call it. Is that something that you've had experience with, having an OC in the booth, and kind of does that affect anything for you?
No, it doesn't. I mean, the way you can communicate nowadays, I think that it really comes down to how the leadership in that group is going to be and what they need on the field as opposed to what they need upstairs. And he's done it both ways. And I think that's the great thing of his ability to assess some of that and see how it handles it when he's upstairs, and maybe the next opportunity he'll be downstairs, which is some of those Saturdays where you scrimmage. But I don't know that anything's set in stone just yet. But you get a way to challenge some other guys to make sure that they got the leadership that it takes when it comes to Saturdays.
Now that you've seen this
in the winter portal that didn't stick, knowing that it's a speed dating type thing where you're only getting a small amount of time to figure out.
Yep.
Does that change anything with you, coach-wise? Can you?
No, I mean you gotta trust. You're gonna have to take some shots and some chances. To be quite honest, I mean we got to be honest with some guys too. So some of the guys that are going to move on, or for maybe they want to play. They want to play now, and so it's probably good for everybody in the long run, because we still gotta still out there working to figure out what we need to make sure that we're able to go through this this grind of a season and understand what that mountain looks like. And so for us right now, there's some things you're doing your best homework on. You're going to have to have some blind faith in those things and know what it is that you're really looking for if you're going to take something.
With the offense, I guess I'm wondering, obviously there's a long way to go before the season, but what maybe has you encouraged? What are you seeing that now the offense has kind of been installed that makes you say, hey, okay, we are on the right track?
Well, I think that there's balance, and I think that if you were out here, you saw it a little bit more today. Our ability to be a little bit more balanced with, not just relying upon run, not just thinking that that's going to be the only way to create big plays, but still finding a way to make sure we have the balance, because we got some skill on the outside, and we've got to make sure we can give them some opportunities. But when you're trying to install everything, it's a little bit difficult, and I think that's the challenge especially to the young guys up front. It's not like a game plan. It's not like you're preparing for 2 or 3 weeks. I mean, you're trying to prepare for a whole season. So every day there's a new install, more so offensively than defensively, because that's the nature of it. Because you got to get looks at it. You got to give them some opportunities to kind of have an idea of what they're doing, but not probably knowing everything about it, the what's and the whys. So it's more of a challenge offensively, in particular for the guys up front. As you go through spring ball, it'll be probably even a little bit different in fall camp, because you'll be kind of recognize who you are and what you need to focus on a little bit more.
We've talked about the challenge of roster construction in this age and how things keep kind of shifting. Yesterday, another kind of curveball with maybe this 105 gets phased in, or how that's going to work. Like, how do you go through the next couple of weeks without knowing how? I
hope we've learned a little bit to not get ahead of the curve in some ways, because nothing's set in stone. So it makes it difficult. You've heard a lot of coaches talk about it. Look, we want to do what's right for the guys, and we've talked to these guys ahead of time, and then it might backfire on you. And so that's where it's really difficult. So we kind of said, look, we don't know how it's going to go. Obviously, we got to be honest with some guys and things like that. But I'm not going to start making cuts and trimming things down, because I don't think that's right to our program. In the long run, if we do that or whatever comes out, they're going to give opportunities to guys that maybe don't have a chance to stay in 105s around the country. But I think in the last couple of years, hopefully we've learned a little bit about now. You got to be careful trying to be too much ahead of the curve with some of the, so to speak, rules that are supposed to come out, because that just hasn't been the nature of what the NCAA or college athletics has done in the last few years.
What's kind of the summer schedule going forward now? Because obviously you mentioned get a couple weeks off now, but when do you start coming back, and what's that look like?
Well, I mean, these guys will have a little bit of time here the next 3 weeks, but they've got another week of school, then they got a week of finals. So everybody says, well, guys get 3 weeks off. Well, our guys don't get 3 weeks. They might not have football.
Practice.
They might not have true weightlifting, because there's a lot of guys that need that time. But there's a lot of things they still got to finish as well. But it's a time to get your mind right. It's a time to relax a little bit mentally, from football. But pros understand, 3 weeks is a long time for a pro. That's something they love. So there's a balance to some of those things. For us, I mean, we don't. There's not a whole lot of time off, right? I mean, it's right into the recruiting. We got a recruiting weekend with 4 or 5 people in this weekend, maybe even a few others. So it's a constant go to figure out, hey, what's the next phase of what we're doing for our team, and then obviously for the whole program.
Speaking about the recruits coming in for like a few of them have announced official visits for today and later this week, but just how have you as you as coach and then the staff kind of work to implement schedules between?
It's hard. I don't love it, but again, whatever we do, we're going to do really well. And so we've got 4 of them in today through this weekend. So we've got to balance ourselves from making sure we take care of our team, making sure we're doing the things we need to do. We're wrapping up spring football. We're having the meetings we need to have with our own players, and then moving ourselves on to the recruiting thing too. So you've got to be able to balance a lot of different things, and that's not the easiest thing in the world, but like I said, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. So you got to be able to kind of transition into another phase really, really quick.
You spoke on Najee just a little bit, but how important has it been to have his experience back in order to solidify the secondary?
We knew that kind of that it was going to be a big deal for us, and that's probably why we pushed as hard as we did to give him the opportunity. But his leadership, he's really the culture of what you want. I mean, he is a worker. He's a guy that started in Division II, and even when he came here, he probably wasn't ready to play, but yet he still played and he worked, and he's to a point now where he's completely different, in my opinion. And so I think it's been really good for Rico as well, because there's more on Rico's plate and the things we expect Rico to be able to do. It's really good to have a sidekick that's in your room every single day that maybe is different than you, and that's kind of the beauty of the 2 of those guys is they feed off each other, they challenge each other, but they're still really different from each other, and I think that's a great mix.
Matt Young was a guy who entered as somewhat of a question mark, but by the end of camp, he was getting reps with the first team. What have you learned about him in your short time?
He's a grown man, and no matter where they play at, what division they play at, guys that are passionate about the game, guys that love the game, get better at the game. And I don't know what he was like coming out of high school. I don't know what he was like in the first year or so, but I can tell you this, that he's a grown man. He loves the game. He's passionate about the game. And for 34 days or for 15 practices, he did nothing but get better each and every day. And he's gonna really, really help us, and he's got a bright future.
Atticus is you haven't answered any funny questions this spring, but I guess I'm just wondering what have you seen from him, and obviously what kind of just jumped
So
out?
I mean, we finished decent in punt last year, not where we want to be. I think 11th or something in the country. His consistency has got to get better, and I think that was the challenge. It's a little bit harder sometimes in spring ball to figure out because we're inside and you're not able to punt and see really the full punt that hits the ceiling or things like that. So it's a little bit of a challenge. They can come out here and punt, but that's not the consistency we're looking for. We're looking for the consistency, when there's a rush, when there's a pocket and things like that. I think he has grown. I think he showed some things even today, but it's going to be still a consistent thing that we're going to have to continue to pound upon. And he does. He's gotten better, but for us to say, hey, his true average is 45 yards with a 4.5 second hang time is something he knows he's got to continue to work for. But as you saw there today, you let him go, and he's got a chance to hit some 60, 65 yarders that not always what you're looking for, because sometimes you outkick that coverage, but every now and then we can handle it.